and we will catch you on the flip. Peace.
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 P.S. Phil, I love you, Phil. You'll be okay. You're with Isabella, but you'll be okay. You might die, but you're not going to die because Daddy's watching out for you. I love you.
I got super weird, super quick.
AOA, that's a triple play. New episodes, I couldn't wait. Yeah. Open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AOA, check me out. Look, plugged in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it, my wife.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AOA show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with the boys, Isaiah.
Yo, yo, yo.
And Gavin.
What is Gucci shoes?
And today we are here to talk about Season 2 premiere of The Promised Neverland, which is super exciting. I know Gavin's jumping out of his skin over there to talk about this. I said it in our live reaction, which if you haven't checked out yet, you definitely want to go check out. And that's on our AOA Reacts channel, which we will have linked in the description. So go check that out and subscribe to the channel if you want to see our reaction to the season premiere and any future reactions that we might do. But we're here today to have an in-depth analysis discussion. And I said briefly in the reaction, which I'll say again, if you guys have been following us for a long time now, if you've been here since the beginning, which I know is very few because it's been humble beginnings, but you'll know that The Promised Neverland was one of the inspirational shows, I would say, among a couple others that really got us on this anime train and made us want to talk about this as a podcast, as a show, to make content. This was really one of the founding shows to do that, and we thoroughly enjoyed it when the first season was out. All three of us were in agreement that this was a great, fantastic show, and we couldn't be more excited to cover it again now that we've come full circle, as it were, to Season 2. So it was really cool and nostalgic to get Season 2 premiere, and now, since we've come so far as part of the show, which we have you guys to thank for, but with the equipment and the setup and all the way we conduct things now, it's cool to come at this for round 2 and really give The Promised Neverland the justice that it deserves. So we're here today to talk about the first episode, our thoughts, theories, predictions, etc., what we liked, what we didn't like, etc. But listen, folks, if you like the content, if you like what it is we do, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, sharing with your friends, and commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of the first episode of The Promised Neverland Season 2? What did you think of our discussion? What do you think of the show as a whole? What are your predictions for the future without any sort of spoilers? And if you want to support the show even further, you can refer to our description where we have plenty of links in which you can do so. But anyway, without further ado, let's hop into this discussion. Gavin, hit me. What do you got? First impressions.
So, I will start it because, I love The Promised Neverland. Season 1, one of my favorite shows of all time. However, I will lie if I said that I was not nervous going into this first episode, because what I really liked about Season 1 of The Promised Neverland was completely the atmosphere. For me, I enjoyed the confines that they were put in terms of you are in this development, you are in this house with this woman you don't know much about, you have no information, and it's literally just that thriller aspect of finding out what's going on, intermingling, and that whole relationship. For me, I loved that bond. I loved the community form, but it was even with that community, you couldn't trust anyone. Episode 4, you didn't trust Ray. You were like, what is this sleazebag up to? And then you were kind of looking at Norman, and you're like, okay. And then you're like Emma, and you're like, all right, these two, you don't have a relationship. And then you find out Phil, and you're like, everything is it's weird how they were able to flip on characters so early on, but it was in relation to the actual story that was happening alongside with the later development of Isabella and Sister Crone. It was a lot of it was a lot of plot points that intersected at these very weird points that just made it so much more not enthusiastic, but enthralling to watch. You were always for me, I was always at the edge of my seat. I didn't actually know what was going to happen next, and finding the next revelation in the next episode was mind blowing to me. I was I would have never thought that happened, and I rewatched it 4 times, and even going back to in the hallway where you think they're playing in down the hallway and they're having a fun time, and it's no, she was counting her steps because of this happened, and they found a hidden room, and you're everything had a purpose, and I liked that. It's why we like Attack on Titan and other shows. For me, it was just with the atmosphere that it had, which seemingly isn't, it's crazy by all means, but it's not people are getting their heads sliced off every 2 seconds. It's not as an Attack on Titan where it's a action thriller in a sense where it's so much is happening and your mind is blown. It's more almost tailored back to where it's like they're in such a messed up situation that you feel for these kids, and you don't need to see, you know, the craziest gory fights. It's just the suspenseful thought of what's going to happen next that's keeping you on the edge of your seat compared to how they're maneuvering through these obstacles and tasks. So with that long gushed out explanation gone, moving forward and being outside of the confines that they're in, I was very scared that I'm not going to feel it's a different show at the end of the day. You don't have that atmosphere of I'm in a confined space. How do I get out? It's I'm already out. What do I have to expect? I have the whole world to explore. And a lot of shows, I feel like it's either you could take that too far or you can tone it back in different ways that it doesn't feel like the original show. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's what extent do you take it then moving forward? Is it all these aliens, or is it like all this supernatural stuff going on, and it like kind of feels outside like the realms of how the show I felt was grounded almost in terms of, you know, everything that happened, demons aside, but like you don't care about that. I don't know how they were going to move forward, but so far off the first episode, I am okay with it and I like it. And, you know, just seeing the characters again like reinvigorates me, and just like I love these kids. Like it is absolutely amazing, and I could just go on it for years, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts because, you know, I don't know if you felt the same way, if you feel the same contentions, or it could flip. You might not like it at all because we're not inside the house and it's completely different.
No, for sure. I have thoughts. I have to say that I 100% agree with your sentiments. I thought the same exact things going into this. I was a little frightened because I was thinking the same thing. I mean, if I said it, it would just be mirroring all your thoughts. The atmosphere was something that was absolutely huge for me, too. One of the reasons why I love this show so much, for the reasons that Gavin stated. You didn't know what was happening next, but the confines of the show were to the farm, the house, you know, and this core cast of characters. Isabella is the main antagonist, etc., and you get little breadcrumbs of information along the way. And we all knew we had to get to this point eventually, right, for the show to continue. We couldn't just be there forever because then we outstay our welcome and that gets boring, right? Like, how long is it going to take for them to escape? But once they do, it's scary because you're treading unknown territory, literally and figuratively, right? These kids don't know what they're doing, and that means where the show is going, there could be a million different avenues that they take, right? So I think for starters, I mean, I was okay, you know, with what's going on, but I am curious as to how they're going to incorporate, for what makes Promise Neverland the Promise Neverland, like that thriller aspect of it, with the introduction of these demons, and not just an introduction because we know they exist, but like the prevalent, you know, presence of said demons and the hierarchy of all things going on and all that kind of stuff. And I'm really curious now, and I think that the show, for me at least, my prediction is that what I'll really enjoy about the show is getting all of those big pieces of information uncovered. Like, who is, you know, William Minerva, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, who are the grandmas? Who is this lady that just, or demon that just, you know, nabbed these kids and saved them right off the rip, right? All these questions are the ones that are curious because we're out of the block now. What's up with this world, right? Like,
Norman.
Exactly. Yeah, Norman, that's my biggest one, honestly. I just, you know, I'm really curious, but those are the questions I have, and I totally agree with you. And I think right now we got off to a decent start, but you definitely have to get acclimated to the fact that it's like, this isn't the same exact Promise Neverland anymore. And so long as they could keep the essence of what made the show, in my opinion, so emotional and gripping to begin with, I think that they'll be okay if they just, you know, modify kind of and tweak the surroundings. But I don't know. What do you think?
So pretty mostly what you guys were saying about reasons I loved the season 1 in the first part. But I actually wasn't as, like, I guess, nervous going into the season 2, or rather, I guess I wasn't as worried that I wasn't going to like it. And I think for me, it was because, like, a lot of what makes The Promised Neverland good for me is the characters and, like, how well the show acclimates you to their mindsets. So, like, you have season 1, which is, like, you know, like we've said, like that sort of thriller survival, you know, aspect to it. And then season 2, which, you know, I can't really say obviously, but like looks to be more of like fish out of water, trying to grasp at straws here to stay alive one more night kind of deal. But like regardless what scenario, you're in these kids' headspace the whole time, right? You're like, oh, what does so-and-so know? How do we get to so-and-so? How do we find out how to do X, Y, and Z? Like whatever with season 1. And then it's like the same thing shifted over to season 2, just with a different blanket on it, right? Now it's not like, now the farm is not our world. The farm is not our biggest concern, but like the idea stays the same, right? We're in this place, it be the world, which is a much bigger version of the farm, if at least how I look at it. Again, where do we go? What can we get? Who can we talk to? What is safe? Who knows what? How do it's the same thing. And I think the way these characters respond in these situations and the way that they interact with the world around them and each other, that's what I loved so much about season 1. So going in, I guess didn't know, but as long as they hit that for me, as long as I got the characters, just problem solved and interacted the way they did in season 1, I was okay, whatever genre, I guess, or subgenre it turned into. Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, good initial thoughts. I mean, I feel like we have to say this being that it's the first episode. What are our thoughts on the OP, the ED, OST, all that kind of thing? Because I mean, the visuals and all that are virtually identical, right? It's the same studio and all that kind of stuff. So there's really nothing crazy there. But I was curious to know thoughts on that. I know Isaiah and I, for the first season, loved the OP. Gavin disliked it. The ED was good, but I'm curious, and the OST, I was curious to know if any of you, if any of that stuck out to you in particular. I know some of the OST songs did, or if they didn't, and if they did, what stuck out to you about them? Gavin, what do you got?
So for me, actually, I'm okay with it. I really, and that might seem weird. But for me, it's, there's obviously OPs that you're going to really mess with, and there's going to be ones that you really don't like. This is one for me that isn't anything that blows my mind off, but it also isn't something that I have critiques for. And that's actually a benefit in my eyes, because I look at Attack on Titan, flame me all you want, but I have critiques where I'm they could do this better, they could do that better, they could do this better. And although, they're minor, they're still critiques at the end of the day, where I feel I watched the Promised Neverland one and I was I thought the music was good. I thought it was followed by good animations for both the OP and the ED. I'm content. I'm fine. It's not it's not the best thing I've ever heard. There are better there are better OPs and EDs out there, but it's not bad by any stretch of the word. And honestly, I think it's quite fine. I would enjoy listening to it, and for me that says something. As for the OST, actually nothing really stood out for me, I have to say. And although that's a little upsetting, because I actually really liked the OST in the first season, although I didn't like the OP, kill me. I loved the OST. They had this really cool jazzy vibe that when especially the scenes where they played tag. I don't know if anybody remembers it, but I literally would used to listen to that soundtrack because I thought it was so good. And kind of unfortunate that at least this time around it wasn't anything that I noticed. But that also isn't a bad thing, because it's not I heard anything to where I'm ew, this doesn't belong. So if anything, it's very intermediate. They could change it up in the future. It might lead into something, but I give the first episode a lot of free leniency, especially for a show like this, because it's we tend to forget that the first season was 12 episodes, and we're at this point after 12 episodes. Some shows literally take double the amount of time to even scratch the surface of where I feel we have made it at this point. So it's we know moving forward it's probably going to have to move at a similar pace, which is kind of concerning, because you're outside the confines of a house, in this own deserted place. Now you're in a really big world, and I'm a little nervous because the first episode, it was paced a little bit to where you kind of jumped around. A lot of things happened very fast, and I'm did that seem like a natural thing? Okay, we just got outside. Oh, now they're right on our tail. The next scene. Oh, now this random guy swoops me. Oh, we're in this place. And although that isn't not probable by any stretch of the terms, but I'm relatively to when they got outside of the walls, how are we going to move forward with this timeline? Is every episode just going to be mashed with, we're doing this, now we're doing this, we're doing this? And in some aspects that can work. I am very curious to how it ties together with the plot points, and if it follows through correctly and they're not just kind of throwing stuff in from time pressures and things like that, because I mean, it can happen. We've seen it with shows where it's they had the best plot, but if they don't just pace it right, it won't fall through. But I mean, if it's anything, the first season, it was paced perfectly. A lot happened. It all was fluid, and I enjoyed it. And it wasn't bad the first episode. I thought it was fine. And if they continue down a similar route where it's they're just cautious not to throw too much to the wind, it can work and it will work. And I really hope, because I loved it. And the first episode, I just want to see the next one. So that is a great indicator that I love it. I'm about it.
Yeah. It's funny. I like the OP myself. I have to say the first OP has a special place in my heart, but obviously it's only the first time I've listened to this one, and I liked it off the bat. And usually what happens with me is that most of the time for me, the OPs will grow on me, even if I don't like them or I like them at first. Like, I tend to like them more as the show goes on because I'm like, oh, okay. I start to see some of the things that they're showing in it happen throughout the episodes and tying things together, and the song will generally be catchy and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I thought this one was good. I had a particular interest in the ED, not necessarily for the song itself, although I thought that was good, but because of the two characters that were really highlighted in this, and that was, I don't know if she specifies her name, but the demon woman and the demon male, assumedly, that rescue the children. They literally take up the entire ED, if I'm not mistaken, which is very interesting to me because these characters, I would have to assume, are going to take very center stage, or at least occupy main stage with our core cast throughout the majority of this season. So who are these demons or people or whatever? What is their goal? You know, what are they going to do to be able to help or deter these people, etc.? I'm really curious to know that. And one thing that I did notice with the OST was that because of the change of pace, in a sense, or the change of scene, rather, or theme, because there are a lot of demons now, I noticed actually there were points in the soundtrack where it went from like that like jazzy feel with like the children was like getting out, which I do remember, and it was great, to like this more, I can't even describe it, like this epic, you know what I mean? Or feel like this dreary, like chanting, or like, you know what I mean? Like the very low where they're in the cave. And it was like, it really set the precedent for like what the scene is, you know, like giving the audience like this clue where it's like, there's a little bit of, you know, a little bit of fear involved, a little bit of uncertainty. You don't really know what's happening, but it's like this presence, you know, these demons exude this presence. And even throughout the music, you're kind of scared at any given moment that anything could happen. At least that was the vibe I got. So I really liked that. And I have a feeling that's going to be prevalent throughout this season, being that demons are taking, you know, occupying the main stage with our cast. To go on your point for a second, I did think that the first episode, I will say, I mean, I'm just grasping at straws. I really liked the first episode, and I love the show. I do think it was a little fast. I will say, not like anything where I couldn't follow what was happening. I mean, we were very much in the loop. But I am curious to see where they go from here, or if they needed that first episode to be like, okay, we just need to establish these two characters and where the kids are, and now from here we're going to go into the whole like problem-solving thing. That's at least my hope, rather than it being like that, which I think is going to be the case. But I understand if this was the case, why it was the case.
Yeah. It's not like you're going to have these little kids running around like killing these.
Sure.
Like if you need to expedite, like, okay, we need them to get to like why things so like stuff can start rolling. That's why I give it a free pass.
Yeah.
I really hope it
is. Exactly. If it's the first episode, because I really hope, you know, if the case is that we're going in that it's like they have to take alternative measures in order to avoid these demons, and like they kind of have to reshape the game, as it were, right? It's like, okay, well, these things worked on Isabella and human minds, and this is how we dealt with the house. Now we're in a forest with demons, and they have these pseudo dogs, they have creatures outside. Like, how do we now change our strategy, change our tactics, and you know, to be able to adapt to this new world that we've now found ourselves in, instead of like, you know, I just hope it's not like a lot of like run, you know what I mean? And it's like a lot of like Ray outrunning what X creature, or like them just, you know, doing like kind of like ludicrous stuff. I hope that it's like their limitations are made abundantly clear, and they have to use their absolute intelligence, you know, over really like physical ability and stuff, when at least when it's obviously these gargantuan style demons. But you know, from there, I don't know if you had anything to say, Isaiah, before moving on to the next point. But
well, the OP I really loved. The ED I also really loved. I had this thing with the first OP where like I loved the song and I loved the animation, and I actually think I like the animation for this one more than the first one. But it did this thing where like I'd get into like the new episode, and it would just get you fired up to watch the next episode. And this did that for me too, where it's like these kids are, you know, are put in like this impossible sort of situation where it's like, all right, just live, like, you know, outrun these demons, outrun anything and everything that's trying to kill you, and just survive. And so like, I don't know, it puts me in this headspace of like, I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, they're right. That sucks. Like, okay, the days are numbered. I get it. But then like I watch the OP and I'm like, nah, fuck all that. Like, they can do it. They could kill all the demons if they have to. And it's like, excuse me. It's like, it gets me in, again, like what I love about this show is like, it gets me in this headspace of these kids, but it's like, you start thinking through all the things that like they probably think through, where it's like, are we going to run out of food? Are we going to run out of water? Is everybody happy? Like, how are we going to get, you know, what's safe to eat, what's not safe to eat, like how do we keep the demons off our tail, and like all the stuff that I'm worried about in my head as I'm watching the episode. But then like you see stuff like that, like just the the way that the OP and the ED, more so the OP, are structured, and then I start thinking, like, I would say like Emma, where it's like this abundant optimism where you're like, it doesn't matter, we'll find a way, like we will survive. And like that's the ticket, at least for me. It's like, if this show can keep me in that mode of like, all right, what are the kids thinking, like how do we, like, kids and me, you know what I mean, like how do we get through this? I think it's going to do really well. I do like the way that I obviously haven't read the manga, but I like the way that the demon girl and like the other demon, I believe Sungu or Sunju,
something like that.
yeah,
Was it?
Was the the male demon, how they're introduced, because I think that's, again, like part of what I think makes the show great is the complication of relationships, right? Isabella wasn't just this like woman who was their enemy, who like hated kids. She was their mother. She raised these kids and took care of them, and up until their world gets turned upside down. And even after, I would argue, like, again, one of the hot contentions of like going against Isabella for some of the kids was like, wait, but that's mom. We can't, you know what I mean? And so like there's complications in that relationship. And the same thing here, where it's like, yeah, demons want to eat us, but like this world is so big, like, have we not considered the possibility that not every single demon here is trying to kill and eat people? Some of them might be outcast even by the demon standards. Some of them, I love that. It's the complicated relationships, and like, again, how these characters interact with those relationships, how they problem solve to overcome those things. I was thoroughly impressed with the first episode. I didn't really have a problem with not that you guys were saying you did, but like, I didn't really find it, I guess, fast. But that's just me. I all around thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about Ray for a second here, because I really loved Ray's character development, which I would argue actually he had the most character development out of the core three in season one, at least towards the end. And now into the second season, we kind of see all the fruits of that labor coming together, in the sense that he's like, no, Emma, I'm going to protect these kids with my life. It's not about like, I need to find a way for me to survive. Yeah, right. Anymore. It's about, I need to find a way for us to survive. So everything I do is in service of us and the family rather than myself, which I thought was a really great turnaround. And I'm really curious to see where Ray goes throughout the course of this season, in particular, being that now he has that frame of mind, right? Because Ray, Norman, Ray, and Emma are all incredibly intelligent in their own right, and they all have like little attributes that maybe outweigh the other person in this way or that. But Ray, for the most part, from what we've seen, is like, I don't know. I guess there could be an argument for any of them, but I would wager that he is, next to Emma, he is a little bit smarter in the sense of tactical prowess, like being able to think of like a plan, like a tactical way to survive, for everyone to survive on the fly. Whereas, at least that's my perception, where Emma kind of thrives and excels in playing the leadership role and being like gathering the forces, being like, this is what we need to do, you guys can do this, etc., like boosting morale, and also having just like physical abilities of a champion. But so I'm really curious, though, because now Ray's biggest weakness, at least, was the fact that he had all these skills, but he was only out for himself. He didn't use them altruistically. He used them selfishly. So I'm very curious to see now that he has, that he has changed his mindset, and also the fact, Emma seems to be all right now because of the herbs and stuff, but I was curious to see if he takes more of a center role in leadership, or like more of an active role rather in it throughout the course of the season, and what his character arc is, from here, like where does he go with all this? Because I feel like he's a very relevant character in that sense, right? He's the biological son of Isabella, and he's very intelligent for the reasons I've stated. But I'm curious to know, and it doesn't have to be Ray. I just brought up Ray, but if you're curious about, or if you took a liking to any of the particular characters, Ray, Emma, etc., some of the other kids that we've come to see. Another one I'll just throw out there real quick. I love that little kid that was experimenting with the plants, or was looking at the plants the whole time, who I didn't recognize from the first season. Somebody could correct me on this. Was that it? But she was just adorable because she had the biggest eyes, you know what I mean? She's like a little inquisitive thing. I'm curious to see like if she's like one of those sleeper kids that's like really intelligent, because sometimes like, oh, holy crap, Phil, you're a genius. Yeah, like another Phil or something. But anyway, I don't know if you guys have thoughts.
So I definitely did really mess with Ray this episode, and I had the last season for a lot of the stuff that you said, where it's like Ray was this sort of like the lone wolf. He was the, the Sasuke type character, right? Where he's like, I'm out for myself. I'm not trying to like, we're saving the valuable kids, not everybody. But yeah, through Emma and through Norman, you really see them instill this idea in him that like a human life, like because it exists, right, just off that value by itself is meaningful and shouldn't be cast away, in sort of any logistical numbers game, if it makes it unfair or what have you. And so you really do see him sort of take that to the full front. I do think that he's going to take a little bit more of like all right, I'm going to lead this pack. I'm going to help guide. Like, I think that statement, I don't know if you guys are familiar with, like, how familiar you are with theater and stuff and like musicals, but like one of the key rules in a musical, or one of the things that like you're supposed to have, is something called an I Want song. And it's this song, it's usually one of the first few songs in the show. And it's used always to establish the main character's desire, their motivations. Why is this character here? What do they want? What is the story supposed to get them to? I feel like that was what that, in this episode, Ray's speech to Emma, that's his character's declaration. He's like, this time around, this isn't going to be you leading the pack and like me giving you all the little like, tactical strategy that like, no, I'm going to get us out of this. I am going to protect everybody. And so I would love to see, naturally, because I'm just a little messed up like that, my head goes to this place of like Ray's character ending up having to make some sort of penultimate sacrifice in order to keep the gang safe. And in my head, the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh, what if like just when we get Norman back, we lose Ray? And it's like this thing of like this tug of war between the group where it's they can't ever really be together because of outside extraneous forces or what have you. That would just be like all kinds of up and complicated. But I love that stuff. But I do think that Ray's character, and I want to say like, so Ray and Emma, and feels a little cheating because they're the main characters, at least up until we meet these two demons who I actually think are going to play as much of a main role as like the kids do. But mainly because in season 1, Emma, like you said, Emma, Ray, and Norman, to single them out, like have their roles, right? The things they're good at, the things they're not so good at, and they all complement each other so well. But again, the scale, even as like big of a deal as it is for them, is small representatively, right? Like to the rest of the world that they're now in, like they were here, they were in this little box. But it's like now they're outside of that. Now they're out in the real world, or the bigger world, and they're one man down, right? So it's like, I want to see these characters grow out of those molds. Like it was cool and it was fun, I think, for season 1 to have them do those things, because then it blended the conflict through season 1 really nice. But I think it's gonna get less believable if, in my mind, that's the only things that they excel at, and like we're still kicking at the end of season 2 here. Like they're gonna have to grow up, for lack of a better term, and they're gonna have to grow out of like those molds where like Emma's gonna have to learn how to become a little bit more strategically, set on her own and more of a tactician. And Ray, even though episode 1 is kind of an indication because he just outruns all these demons like like an athlete, is going to have to get more physically fit, and get more, like, again, which I think he will, but like, become a little bit more of an inspiration himself, right? Like Ray was a strategist. I think he needs to be more of a leader, and Emma, I think, needs to, like, I'd like to see their skills blend a little bit more in this second season.
Yeah, very, very good thoughts. Do you have any?
So yeah, to add on, for me, what has been interesting about it is Ray has always been a logistic to a fault, pessimistic person, and Emma is the ignorant but very optimistic person. And together, that is when they shine, because they are both two very opposites, and they're able to. Norman was that middle ground where he was able to digress in both fields and really was the glue that held them together. And we found out at the later season 1 is that because of their mindsets, they both always have different ideas, and those said ideas clash, quite literally. So moving forward, they're going to have to be able to have that teamwork and that cohesion to continue moving forward with all these kids being alive. And for me, I'm not exactly sold on, I mean, and it's hard, it's first episode, you don't know, and obviously we had the declaration by Ray, but also knowing him, it's like I'm curious to see how optimistic as a person he could become with Emma, and when things really do hit the dirt and things get gritty, how when he's gonna have that like testament of his mindset and clash, and it's like when really something's on the line. I can hear the argument that like what happened in this first episode was with taking the reins on the demon that or the whatever was coming after them, and doing that one-on-one and getting stuck in the situation. I can see that, yes, but I'm talking about in maybe a different situation where it isn't like necessarily a monster coming out when you have a plan. It's like when the tables are shifted, they are going to come up with different ideas. They're never going to be on the same page unless they have communication, which looks like they have fixed after what everything happened in the last season. But you still don't know. And in certain scenarios, if they're not together per se, they're going to have different ideas on how to tackle situations, and they're never going to be on that same page. And I wonder how that affects the rest of the cast and the other kids and what happens. I'm not saying Ray's going to go out and ice all these kids and whatever. I do think he has their best interests in mind. It's just a fact that when it comes to strategic planning in certain scenarios, he has a very different mindset than Emma. So if they're not there on the same page, things are going to go differently than what either of them have anticipated, and that can actually drastically change the story, which I feel like, in a way, something like that is going to have to happen to tip the tables or turn the tables. Like, for me, I feel like they can't be on the same page for the whole duration of season 2. Yeah. It would be nice, yeah, but that's in a perfect world, and we are far from a perfect world. Sure. So one of them or both are going to make mistakes, and it's going to come with not being on the same page, I feel like, or having that difference in mindset. That is what caused them to clash before, and that is what's going to cause them to grow. And right now, it's almost like not a false hope, but like a seeming that they have moved on, and they know we learned from like the heart. Like the reality is, it's not that easy. It's not like, I can turn it, like I can change my whole mindset on a dime. Now I'm thinking clearly and positively. Like there are situations that are going to test you, and I'm waiting for those moments to see what happens and comes to fruition. And I feel like it might be sooner than later, depending on what happens with these demon people. Because if we've learned one thing, it's to not trust anything at face value, even as nice as these demons might be. We saw just in the OP, there were kids laying on platters of food. Like we could literally go into the dining room and they're like, yeah, here are all these kids, and we kind of feed the family. We picked you two because you are, like, we think that you guys are awesome or, have the highest capabilities. The rest of these kids were fodder. Like, we don't need them. Like, honestly, that is not outside the realms of this show to do that, I feel like. And now it's just like, okay, you have Ray and Emma, and then figure it out. Like, now you're with it's like, that's what I like about this show is you can predict all day long. They can be the nicest demons and they want to help everybody. But then again, also, they might just be playing nice so they can sell them out to get, if they're outcasts, they might not necessarily want to be outcasts, and they can sell them just to get money or whatever. Yeah. Like, they're the highest, like, they're some of the highest value kids, like, that they know. They were farmed on this for their prowess. So, you could sell them probably for a pretty penny and get somewhere in society, and that's the thing where it's like, you're never going to know, and I'm always going to be on edge, and I'm never going to trust them. And I feel like that is what's going to play with both Norman and Emma, is that they're, like, I feel like Emma might trust them fully, but Ray is going to have that like reserved mindset where it's like, okay, maybe I will, maybe I don't. And he's always thinking behind the scenes, and that might get him in trouble, say they were good, or that might change the balance. That's what I'm like keyed in on, and I can't wait. And I could just talk forever, but I'll move it to you guys.
No, for sure. And I think that leads to a secondary point, which I won't personally harp on too much. If any of you guys have anything to say, feel free, but it's, the other children. I mentioned it briefly with some of who else stood out to you, but I'm talking specifically, and I can't remember their names. Who are the other two main ones? The girl with the glasses and then the tall kid. Dawn and Gilda. Okay, yeah, Dawn and Gilda as well have come very far, within the confines of the story as well. And it's even highlighted when they're outrunning that big demon monster thingy. And he's like, well, they actually formulated their own plan on the fly to get all these kids out of here, and also had to take the reins when Emma in that moment is like, I'll go do it, and just drops, right? Because she's basically got a fever and the whole nine. So, I'm curious to see what their characters do throughout the course of this season, and if they're going to have to really, really take the mantle, which it seems like they're in the process of doing when is needed, when Ray and Emma are maybe at like clashing ends, or Emma is out of commission or Ray's out of commission and they get captured, because we don't know what could happen at any given moment. It's like, it's total unknown out here, total unknown. So I'm very curious to see with their characters, and I'm proud of them, and how far they've come, and all the other children stuff. And I love you were saying it with the rabbits, and I forgot about the OP. I love that shot, just real quick in particular, with they're eating the rabbits and then it's them on the plate, the symbolism there. Because I don't know if that's necessarily like this is a legitimate scene where we lay you on the platter, and I know you didn't say that, but I'm saying like, you know, or it could be, which
That's
is the
the thing,
crazy thing.
it's not outside the realm
It's
of the
literally
show.
not
Like, it's
outside the realm.
insane.
I doubt it, but you know, it could be, and even if it's not, I think it provides a lot of symbolism for this show, like the food chain, all that kind of stuff. You could go into a whole existential thing, you know, philosophical thing about it, but I thought that was cool. And last thing that I wanted to bring up personally was the world. I thought the world was pretty interesting because when I watched this show, the first season, I was like, okay, there's demons. So obviously, like, that's the fantastical already. But I thought it was like, okay, this is just like another scenario of Earth. You know, it's like whatever. Like everything's this, but there's demons. But this first episode really flipped that theory on its head, because there seem to be animals and creatures and all sorts of mystical things going on that are not necessarily relative to Earth or whatever the case might be. So I thought that was very interesting. And a lot of the world was really beautiful in a sense, right? Where they had like some of the, you know, the harmonious animals and not the crazy thing, but like, you know, the bugs, like they were like fireflies, but like butterflies or whatever. Thought it was cool. I thought the imagery was really sweet within that. And like even when they get saved and they wake up and the light is not, it's like they're like flowers, but it's like they have crystals on the end of them that grow. I just thought all of that kind of stuff was really cool, and that's something I'm excited and looking forward to, is seeing all the little intricacies that are in this world and kind of exploring it with these kids, because this is the first time that they're seeing a lot of it and the first time that we're seeing it as well. So I thought that was something that was really cool. But I was curious to know if any of you guys had any other standout moments within the episode or things that you wanted to highlight or talk about or had a profound impact on you, because that's what I had.
So I just have one question for both of you. Where do you think Norman is? Because that nigga's not dead. He's just not.
No,
I ain't
dude.
seen a body. Like, so like my thing is that from the end of season one, or not, the end of season one, when he leaves with Isabella, you know, there's a scene where she's like, "Oh, come in here and wait for a minute," and then that's the last you see of him. I think that is Isabella's first moment of like a crack, so to speak, in her facade here as like the mother that feeds kids to demons or whatever. Because Norman sort of talking to juices her a little bit, where he's like, "Are you actually happy doing this?" And she's like, "Nani?" And you know, but I think that's it. And I think like, you know, that is why once she sees how determined and how willing Emma and all the other kids are to escape, she's like, all right, like, you guys, if nothing else, you guys have guts. Like, go ahead, try it. But I do think she gave Norman a chance to escape. Personally, I could be dead wrong, but I think Norman had this like, Norman just feels like some coon level nigga, bro. Like Norman, he like this would like. He did this thing because he like, and maybe it wasn't like a plan as in foolproof. Maybe he was banking on the fact that he could get through to Isabella, at least enough to let him go or give him a running start, so to speak. And I think he now has either found this William Minerva person and is like trying to find a way to get in contact with Emma and everybody through him or whoever, or is off on his own, or with some other gang of niggas just running around, like, you know, doing the same thing Emma's group is doing, but like, you know, trying again. They're all like, I think one thing that would be cool is if this Minerva person during season 2 is like the focal point of everybody's interactions here. Like if Norman is coming at like with one gang or one group and Emma and company the other, like if this is the point where they meet, and like,
interesting,
maybe while Minerva is supposed to be this, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, for them, right? Like that. I wonder if these demons that Emma's group has encountered, like, might end up twisting the scenario to where like Norman is coming at this Minerva again as like this ray of hope or this light to like save him or help him. But Emma's group are coming at them for a different reason, right? They're like, maybe they learned something about Minerva in their travels or be with this demon that like isn't so good. You know, so I don't know. I like this idea that like Norman is like, he's scheming. He's out there doing something. He's like, you know, because again, Gavin said it before. Norman is sort of like the best of both of the three of them. Like he kind of combines a lot of Emma's optimism and her ingenuity. But he's definitely a tactician. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to run the chessboard, so to speak. And I think that if you had to take one kid by themselves and plop them in this world, Norman's probably your best shot at surviving. 'Cause
Sure.
he knows what's up.
Yeah, no, fantastic question, and one that I've been thinking about for a long time now. And I do agree with you, just to highlight some of the points. I do think that was one of Isabella's first cracked facade moments, as you put it, for sure. And then when the kids escape, I think the real telling sign of that is when she lets her hair down for the first time. Yeah. And that's when she's just like, you know what I mean? She just like exhales, and it's like
undoes the belt.
Yeah, literally. It takes off the shoes like that. She's just like whatever. And I think Norman had a role to play in that when he was taken away. So I think that was a very good point. I personally am of the mindset that I think he's alive. Just to get that clear. Absolutely haven't seen a body, to mirror what you said. I don't necessarily think, and this is my prediction, that he schemed to be in the scenario that he was in. Now, I think he could have had a backup scenario in which it's like, if I get caught, X and X happens. But I don't think that I think that he genuinely thought, he's like, this is the end of the road for me. And I have to leave you and Ray, because you guys are the two ends of the coin. I need to leave you with the proper tools, and you guys have to be the ones to get along now and bring this forward, because my time is done. So I'm going to do whatever I possibly can to set you guys off on the right footing, between leaving these clues, getting you guys to make up, change Ray's perspective, let Emma know that she's got to, be a little tougher at times, etc. And then he genuinely thought he was going to be taken, and he's like, that's it, I did what I could. But I do think that he, like I said, he's alive. And I think my personal opinion is that even Norman is surprised that she was like, okay, actually, I'm going to put you into X group, where he's thinking, I'm going to die. This is it. And saying that, Isabella has a thought, and maybe she makes him last minute audible, and she puts him in some said scenario, and he has some sort of chance. I think personally also that he's not on the run. I think he's actually with the higher up peoples, and he's got his own thing going. Not that he's with them as in I'm in cahoots with you, like I want to achieve the same goal, but as in he's literally within the same confines as them. I think that they have him there, because I don't think personally that he, for as smart as he is, I think once he's there, and to back up my theory saying that I think he thought he was going to die anyway, that where he is now is new to him, and that I don't know, for as smart as he is, if he'd be able to escape on his own, or would want to, or would think that would be the best option. Maybe to be like, okay, I need to meet up with the squad, whatever, but I don't think he has a bunch of kids at his disposal to make this coup. I think it's going to be more of now, does Norman get converted? Does Norman get put into some elevated spot? Does Norman try and find a way to change things within the inside? Does he try to escape? Dude. That's my personal theory prediction. Where does he go from here? And one thing that really led me to believe that was during the OP, there's a lot of shots, but they always put an emphasis on the females, right? In the first season, as in they are the grandmothers, the mothers, the ones that get trained. The males are kind of just food at this point. But we see a couple shots of an older male, and I don't know if that's Minerva. It could be him, because he is named William, so assuming he's a male. So I could be wrong here, but I can't help but think that there is some sort of role that the males have to play that maybe gets kind of put under the rug because it's so damn rare, or it's some other thing that's not being really told, being that the mothers seem to be pretty separate in that scenario. So it's something that the kids wouldn't have realized. But I can't help but think that there are plans for Norman that Isabella was like, all right, I'm going to give you this shot, or I'm going to give you the good word. Maybe we don't need to kill him yet. I'm going to put you in said scenario. And now Norman's going to have to navigate his way through that, and all that craziness ensues. But that's my personal theory. Gavin, I'm curious to hear what you got.
No, I had a very similar mindset, because what initially got me onto the idea was actually when he first got taken, because not only did Isabella put him through a side door, but if we remember back from the first episode of the first season, Connie literally died at the back of a truck right as soon as Isabella gave him, and as she was talking to said demons. So obviously that wasn't the case for Norman, and he is a delicacy among sorts, because he's a prodigy kid. We know that. So they wouldn't just kill him right off the bat and try to preserve him. They would have to go through a different route. So I feel like just with the stance that he holds in being a prodigy and one of the most, matured brains in a sense, that the people who are the demons who are going to eat them at the very least are going to want to converse with him and have a conversation. I feel like it's more than just a meal at that point. Like, if anything, it's almost toying with the food before you have it. So I do feel like that side room or whatever is going to be like the pathway into talking with these higher up demons, and perhaps through that conversation, Norman is either to almost not talk his way out of, but persuade in a way of becoming of actually what you were saying, but like assimilating himself into the ranks. Or what could also happen is wow, how did that just slip my mind? So like with the assimilation process, like it either could end it like, I'm trying to like figure out how to put it into words that like doesn't like that sounds right. It's like with talking to them and these demons, it's not a matter of, you know, I want you to, like, you have to eat me, you know, this is it. It's almost what you were saying, where it's like he's in the conversation that he's having with these demons, they realize the potential that he has, because similar to what you were saying is, I do feel like the males are going to have a prominent role in this society that's going on. And I almost feel like it's almost in a sexist nature, where it's like the girls are like on the front lines, where it's like they are seen as the mothers, they're seen as these type of peoples, where like the males in this society, you know, might be more of the thinkers, or like, you know, like the go-getters or the job. Like, it's sexist in that sense, where it's like we keep the males separate from the females. They do XYZ job, and we expect the males to be like the brains or like the behind the scenes things to do XYZ thing. And although like I feel like that would be a weird twist on the show, you know, if they actually had something like that. And like, maybe because we know that the mothers have to get pregnant in some sense. So I'm also wondering how, you know, males would be a part of that, or if it's not something within the realms of, you know, guys are even allowed to like that. Like, that's like the weird part, where it's like we know that they have to give birth, and it's like, where does like all of these like things fall? Like,
let me tell you about the birds and the bees. The birds and the bees, Gavin.
How does this happen?
Yeah, let's have the talk, because clearly your parents haven't had it yet.
And then she's pregnant. I'm just at a loss for words.
Y'all are crazy.
No, I mean, I definitely think it's interesting where we go, and I didn't mean to cut you off. If there's anything else that you wanted to say.
I for like a weird thing, I feel like the show is going to just become like sexist in that nature. And I mean, like, obviously it's a bad thing, but like it wouldn't be outside the realms of like why we haven't seen these guys, and maybe they're just like, yeah, like guys aren't good in this situation being mothers. Like, we need that nurturing, like loving face, and that's not something that like a male can deliver on in this world that they're. I'm not saying that any of this is true. I'm saying in the confines of the Promised Neverland, but it's like that might be their mindset, and they're like, oh, guys, or you know, men are better for this thing, whether it's physical labor. Like, there's still there's trenches around these farms. Like, they could literally be like, yeah, every male, you're in the trenches, you're digging these holes, and like, this is like what the females do. And like, there has to be a role in society for them that is excluding from females being involved, because it's obvious that they're separated. They have to have different, like, they're doing different things. And it's like, what could they have the males be doing separate from the females, other than like labor or some other aspect? So that's what I'm curious to find out. Like, are they the cooks? Who knows? Like, I don't know. Like, you know, it's like, what else could they be doing? It's not like they have a lot of power. They gotta do something.
Well, so my prediction kind of, I know I already expounded my thoughts before, but my personal prediction is that they actually don't, if it's true at all, and males even are relevant whatsoever, a modicum of relevancy, I actually don't think it's a plethora of them. I don't think it's like they have as many males as females. I think it's very rare for them to take on a male, and it has to be for a very specific reason. I don't necessarily think it's like, okay, you guys are our laborers, or you guys have to do X chore. I think at that rate, like, they already have such a good system going down that they probably eat them.
I forgot they have Jack Demons.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's a hierarchy to the demon class, which actually we know for a fact, because in the first episode of the first season, he's like, no, we can't eat these. We got to save these for the big guys. And they're like, they got a flow chart and everything like that. It's clearly there's ones that are lower. So I think those guys are in charge of anything that a male could do physically, because obviously they're quadruple the size of any grown male. Plus, so they got that covered.
You don't really need a man to get a woman pregnant. You just need the sperm. Like, if we're being real. So like,
but you need a place to get the sperm. Like, you can't pull it out. I know what you mean.
What I'm getting at is like, the dudes don't have to stick around.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah, exactly.
Like, and that means, like you were saying, like, they don't need, if they have 100 chicks, like, they don't need 100 dudes.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know. Well, so my thing, that's what I was saying. And my prediction is that I think there is a relevancy for males, but I think it's like incredibly rare that you would be selected to be saved for some weird particular reason. And I don't know what that is, whether it's just for them to farm you, and because you're smart as all hell, they use you to inseminate the women. You know what I mean? To have, to whatever,
The
to have
best chance
children.
for possible
Best,
offspring,
yeah, like best.
They're like, Norman, let's talk real quick.
Yeah, like serious.
That seed you got going, we're gonna need it.
I know we're getting into weird
And then your
territory,
brain.
but I mean, like,
Well,
for
'cause
real,
they make a comment at the beginning of season 1 as they're like, when they reference the fact that Norman, Emma, Ray are in this batch of kids, they're like, Isabella's farming like these kids. They'll be perfect for the harvest. So I think there's, if anything, because I don't really know, if anything, as far as this theory is concerned, I think they might just be saving Norman for the harvest, which I think is like this very specific event, and is not the same as like your typical, like, let's eat brains just on a Tuesday. It's like, because, they again, there's that shot in season 1 of like the, who I'm imagining is either the head demon or, somebody in that circle who is talking about it. And it's like, okay, so clearly there's like this, again, they call it the harvest, which it has to be like this, this
like
event or this offer,
Mm.
And I could think of no better place to eat the brains of somebody of these caliber than that.
And but with that, it would also assume, or actually be quite literal, that if he's being saved for the harvest, then that might even be a waiting room that he's put in where he's going to find more. He might not be free in a sense, but he realizes or he is shown the mechanisms and how they are working and how this is being taken place, and maybe on the inside he comes across some of Minerva's guys or other good demons in a sense that actually then lead to his escape and then further, things of that nature.
Yeah.
It's so many things can happen, bro. That's what makes it amazing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, we could go on all day, but I think we basically hit all the points within this episode. I thought it was a really fun discussion. Hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to it or watching it as well. That camera's off. So we're going to end the discussion here. But like I said before, guys, if you like the content, you like what it is we do, if you want to support us, make sure you guys are liking this video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Make sure you guys are subscribing also to our AOA Reacts channel, where you can catch our live reaction to The Promised Neverland amongst many other shows as well. Make sure you guys are sharing with your friends, because the more the merrier. Be a part of the conversation. It's not just us, it's you as well. And with that being said, comment your thoughts down below. What did you think of our discussion? Is there anything that we missed? Was there anything in this episode that had a profound impact on you? What are some of your predictions if you haven't read the manga, obviously, already? We are very curious to hear all of it, and refer to our description for any sort of links that could support the show. And one last thing, if you guys are looking to rep some AOA swag, if you're looking for that merch, now is the perfect time to do it. If you want to get anything from shirts to hoodies to leggings to fanny packs to pillows to blankets to mugs, you name it, it's all there. Hit us up on our merch shop. Our link is in our description down below. Everything right now is 20% off. You heard me right. That's 20% off every single item in our merch store for the entirety of January. At checkout, type in the code AOA 2021. That's AOA 2021 for 20% off any order that you do on our merch shop until the end of January. But until next time, folks, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you on the flip. Peace.
Peace.
P.S. Phil, I love you, Phil. You'll be okay. You're with Isabella, but you'll be okay. You might die, but you're not going to die because Daddy's watching out for you. I love you.
I got super weird, super quick.
Ninjas are samurais, blaze of the kunais. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly.